Hello there, World of Tankers. I'm Blitz, and in today's video, we're going to be talking about the brand new vehicles that are currently undergoing super testing in World of Tanks Blitz. Now, this isn't going to be the T-54A2, the T-25 Pilot 1, or the Eagle 7, just because I've already done videos talking about all their tank statistics and previews, but I figured, you know what, let's kill 3 birds with 1 stone in today's video, and let's just do all 3 of the brand new vehicles undergoing super testing, so that way it's easier for you guys to watch the whole video, find out about all 3 tanks instead of scrolling through 3 different videos trying to find. So I'll link the other videos that I just told you guys about in the description down below, but this video is going to talk about 3 vehicles, 2 tier 8 premiums and 1 tier 7 premium tank. I'm very excited for all of them, but I really want to see how Wargaming does end up balancing them, because right now statistically they look way too overpowered. So of course, if you guys like this type of content, you guys actually voted, and you voted on the poll. 72% of you wanted to see this video. I was very surprised. So if you guys want to vote on more videos I do post, please make sure to click that subscribe button down below. Click that bell notification icon as well. You'll be notified when I do make my polls. But other than that, let's get straight into it. Hope you guys do enjoy the content. So this video I just recorded actually, which was my bad luck. It turns out my mic wasn't connected for some reason to my recording software. It is now because I see it working, but yeah, I literally just recorded about a 17-minute video talking about all 3 of these tanks you can see here, and then it turns out, oh yeah, by the way, we weren't recording your audio, so that's always fun, so please enjoy this video. But getting straight into it, we're going to start off with the Amil 1951. Now this is the tier 8 Swedish heavy tank, and it is an autoloader, sort of like the AMX 5100 type. So right off the bat, I'm going to say I've looked over the statistics, of course, because I just did a video on it, and this vehicle seems completely overpowered in my opinion, and that's actually the same for this vehicle too, the Centurion Mk1, and I'm going to be telling you why I actually feel that this tank is going to need to be tweaked, because you're going to see just everything is going for it. So starting off with firepower, it has good DPM, and this is an autoloader, keep in mind. Most autoloaders don't have the best damage per minute because they make up for it in burst clip damage. So this tank has decent damage per minute. It is sitting at 2145. It's got great penetration. It's got 230 on the standard. That means if you're like me, you love your calibrated, you're going to have 242. So pretty much all tier 8 heavies armor are practically useless against the AP shells of this tank. And if you can't pen, just load the premium. That's enough to get through an E75's lower plate. So damage and penetration on this tank really aren't going to struggle that much, because as well you're dealing 320 damage per shot. So that's 960 damage in a clip, which is a very deadly amount. Then you take a look, this tank has excellent view range at 288.2 meters. Its shell velocity is great at 1080, I guess it's meters a second. I've never really figured out what shell velocity is, but I would love to know, so somebody let me know in the comments down below. Penetration loss over distance is something that a lot of tanks kind of struggle with, especially with standard shells being AP. This tank doesn't really bother it at all, at only 4%. Now, rate of fire, 6.7 isn't that bad, to be honest. Again, for it being a clipper, it has 3 shells in a clip, which is able to get them all out in 6 seconds, dealing 960 damage, as I said before. And its magazine reload time is actually not even the worst, at only 20.86 seconds. So overall, the gun isn't that bad on the damage side and how quick it's going to get the shells out. Then we move on to the gun handling. Its 1.86 second aiming time is great. Dispersion at 0.310, again, pretty dang good. Dispersion factors when moving, rotating the tank, rotating the turret are, again, great. When rotating the turret, it's actually almost best in class. And even after shot, it's honestly not that bad. At 4.0. It's not great, it's going to struggle a little bit aiming back in, but with that excellent aiming time you have, it's really not going to be that much of a struggle. Now gun depression, oh yeah, let's only give it 10 degrees, because of course this tank has to have the most. Now gun elevation is going to be a struggle on this vehicle, but honestly there's not a lot of scenarios where you really need to aim your gun straight up above people. So yeah, gun elevation really isn't the biggest issue I'm going to feel on this vehicle. And turret traverse speed is excellent, 35.51. Its weight is very light, and of course when you're light, there are a couple perks going for you. Ramming is not one, but speed goes 45, which is excellent. That is great in speed. Reverse speed is 20, so as well you go great in reverse, great in forward speed. The effective power to weight ratio on this tank is spectacular, and traverse speed on this tank as well is great. So overall, mobility, gun handling, damage per minute, spotting, everything on this tank, even penetration, is excellent. So there's one big question going for the vehicle, and that is the armor profile. How is the frontal hull going to be? Because if it's very weak, well, there's no point on having all those other abilities. Well, looking at the upper plate, it's about 200 and, let me level it out there, about 220 millimeters base, which is pretty impressive when you think about it. Now, if you're going to angle this tank, I wouldn't bother, because this side armor is 35 millimeters thick. That is the weakest side, I think, actually, out of every tier 8 heavy in the game. In fact, if you have a 150 millimeter, well, you're actually easily going to overmatch that side armor with 3 Calabro's roll all day of the week. So that's one thing to keep in mind. Now, as I said, the upper plate on this tank is about 220 millimeters thick. The lower plate is about 190 millimeters thick. Now, that's very impressive when you do think about it, how thick the lower plate is. So that means tier 7 vehicles can actually struggle to penetrate it. Now, this is where the tank gets a little bit bonkers. Looking at that turret, base, it's 250. The edge is 290, so you're never penning the edges of the turret. The upper plate, yeah, 254, good luck. The roof of it, yeah, you're not going to pen 224, and you see that cupola sticking up there, and you know, it's actually a pretty big cupola. You might think, hey, I might be able to shoot at that. Yeah, Wargaming made it 250 millimeters thick. No clue why that is. Somebody please tell me in the comments down below what honestly can go through Wargaming's mind to make the cupola 250. So practically just aiming dead on, the turret is impossible to pen without premium. Then you use your 10 degrees of gun depression, and that turret is now 315 millimeters thick. The upper plate on the tank is 350, the edges are 305, and that cupola 250 still. You literally can't penetrate the turret at all, and even that gun mantlet is still about 200 to 800 millimeters thick. So literally everything on this tank is practically impossible to pen when it's using its gun depression. And yeah, it's pretty broken. And you know, I was looking at the tank, and there's this part underneath the turret, which I thought, hey, you might be able to shoot that if you could get a shell through the tracks. Nope, 277 millimeters thick. Heat shells can't travel through tracks, so yeah, you can't penetrate that as well. So practically everything on this tank frontally is impossible to penetrate as long as you're against a player, should I say, that knows what they're doing. Now, the side armor on this tank, it does have that spaced armor, which doesn't have much armor. It's only 5 millimeters thick, but it is going to save you from any HE trying to penetrate the side unless you can get it in the upper part. This part here, only 35 millimeters all around. And I was looking at the front here thinking, hey, maybe that bulge that sticks out is going to be weak. Nope, still 260 to 1,000 millimeters thick. So yeah, good luck penning that. But the side of the tank is definitely extremely weak. If you get the side of this vehicle, yeah, 35 millimeters thick, 30 on the rear. Yeah, literally everything on the tank is extremely easy to pen. It's just that, is it going to be balanced? Because I first of all feel that cupola should be a weak spot. 250 millimeters thick. Yeah, that in my opinion is a little bit redonkulous. Like, yeah, that's broken. So let me know in the comments down below what you think about this tank, if it's going to need a balancing factor. But again, if you angle it literally at that much of an angle, it's only about, nah, that's too much. But like this, 160 millimeters thick. So I will say this is sort of like the M6 experimental of autoloaders, but like comparing it to an AMX 5100, in my opinion, this tank is way, way more overpowered than it, because the AMX 5100 is a balanced tier 8 clipper, because yeah, it's got speed, it's got mobility, so does this tank, but the AMX doesn't have armor. You could argue that this tank does have those weak sides, the weak turret, but so does the AMX, and the AMX doesn't get an overpowered frontal armor profile. So let me know in the comments down below what you guys think. Moving on to the Centurion Mk1. This is another tank that I have a feeling is going to be overpowered. This is sort of like the Carnarvon Action 10 of medium tanks. In fact, it's almost identical to the Carnarvon Action 10. This is like you grab a Defender Mk1, make the upper plate overpowered, make the turret overpowered, and then give it the Carnarvon Action 10 gun. So here we go, let's take a look at it. So hit points, it has a very healthy amount at 1,450. View range, 302 meters, is excellent. DPM is not spectacular, I will say that. It's 2,334, which, yeah, it's not bad by any means. I will say that. It's still not a bad DPM. And when you look at penetration value, yeah, you still are able to trade that not-so-great DPM to have amazing penetration values of 226, best out of all tier 8 mediums. And as well, your premium pen at 258 is pretty dang good. You're able to penetrate a lot of opponents with your premium. Now, the damage is only 190. As I said, this is just like any other Centurion gun with that small gun it does get. And the velocity on the tank is great, 1,020. Your APCR has 1275 velocity, actually best velocity out of all tier 8 mediums in the game. Rate of fire though, here we go. 12.29 rounds a minute, 4.88 seconds reload. It's practically the same reload as a I was about to say Super Conqueror, but practically the same reload as a Carnarvon Action 10, just on a medium hull, which means that your gun handling is great, 1.72 second aiming time. Dispersion is best in class out of all mediums, which is very impressive. You know, the Carnarvon Action 10 has amazing and I think best aiming time and dispersion for heavy tanks, but heavy tanks don't have the best aiming time and dispersion. Medium tanks like the Indian Panzer, the Mutz, the CDC, they have great dispersion. This tank blows them right out of the water at 0.299. Dispersion factors when moving, rotating, honestly, aren't that bad, and when rotating a turret, it's excellent. So is aftershot at 3.5. Of course, it has 10 degrees of gun depression, just like the Amil 1951, and this tank actually has decent gun elevation as well at 18 degrees. It has decent turret traverse speed at 43.74, and it also weighs a very, very hefty amount, about the same as a T-54 Mod 1 at 51 tons. That means that this tank is going to be excellent at ramming vehicles. Now it weighs a lot, but it still goes pretty quick at 45 kilometers per hour. It's definitely not the quickest, but it goes the same speed as your Defender Mark 1, and because it has an excellent power to weight ratio, speaking a little quick there, it has a great power to weight ratio of 20.49. It's still going to be able to get up to top speed, use its great mobility, and get into position. And it also goes 20 kilometers per hour in reverse, which again is great when you do think about it. Traverse speed on the tank, yeah, it's not spectacular, but it's still going to be pretty good. In 2 seconds, you're able to turn the tank completely the opposite direction. So overall, all the statistics on this tank are pretty dang good when you do think about it. So once again, what does the armor profile look like? Because if it's not very good, then of course that would be pretty balanced. But yeah, this is where I think the tank goes a little bit ludicrous. So we all know the Defender Mark 1 has a great turret, but something it doesn't have is a great hull. In fact, the Defender's hull is awful. Well, let's take a look at the turret first and compare it. So the turret armor, yeah, aiming dead on at the mantlet, 323 millimeters thick. Good luck penetrating through that with your heat rounds. Of course, heat can't go through spaced armor, so yeah, heat won't go through that. And AP shells, good luck with that, unless of course you are in, like, let's say an Object 704. The standard pen is also right on the red spot around the turret. Well, that's 370 to 280 millimeters thick, so as well, good luck penetrating through that unless you have very high penetration premium rounds. Then you move on a little further to the orange spot, 284, and a little bit further to 469. So literally everywhere on the turret is practically impossible for tier 8 mediums to pen. The roof of the turret, you might think it's very weak. Well, it's 270. So yeah, the turret is broken. By all means, it literally is impossible to pen unless you hit that cupola, which as you can see looks tiny on paper, but it is 92 millimeters thick, which means an RHM with calibrated can penetrate it with HE, but look how small the cupola is. Good luck penetrating that from the front. When this tank is using its gun depression, well, look at that cupola. Yeah, where'd it go? I don't know, because you literally can't see it. Not to mention that upper plate is, well, 230 millimeters thick, and that's base aiming. Now that means that every single tier 8 medium in the game, base just aiming dead on, can't penetrate your upper plate, and that's without accounting in the gun depression. So when you're using gun depression in this vehicle, that's 315 millimeters thick, which means that now all tier 8 heavy tanks cannot penetrate your upper plate even with premium rounds. My IS-5 loading in calibrated with heat has 297 millimeters of premium pen, which means that you literally cannot penetrate through the upper plate of this tank even with the most penetration in tier 8 vehicles. Even vehicles like, I'd say an E75 are going to immensely struggle to penetrate your upper plate. So it's really just the lower plate that's the weak spot on this tank, which is 112 millimeters thick, which is just your Centurion hull. So if you're using gun depression in this vehicle, you're pretty much broken. Now, of course, you do have that tiny bar right below the turret that's only about 195, but literally, if I said, oh, that's 195 millimeters thick on any other medium tank, that would be great. Like, honestly, this tank is ridiculous, in my opinion, looking at the armor profile. Now, the side armor, honestly, also isn't that weak. You can angle it at a spot like this, 250 on the sides, the front 240. Like, it's crazy how thick the tank is. Now, if you do get shots on the side, you can see that it's a very, very large and robust tank. So if you get shots on the side, load HE all day with your 120 plus millimeter guns, because yeah, it's only 52 millimeters thick, so very easy to penetrate. The side of the turret is actually the weakest spot because, oh, what's that? Yeah, the rear of the turret is also 127 millimeters thick, so no HE in that. And the lower part, it's honestly crazy how thick this tank is. As well, the rear of it, that's all spaced armor, the purple there, so you actually can't pen HE on the upper part of the lower plate. It's only the bottom part, almost like a Sheridan, you can penetrate, being 44 millimeters thick. So yeah, you can get why I think this tank is crazy overpowered in my opinion. This, in fact, in my opinion, is more overpowered than the Caernarvon Action 10, because the Caernarvon, yeah, it's got good armor, but the lower plate is very weak. The upper plate is pretty thick, but it doesn't have that much armor. Its sides are as strong, but the Caernarvon Action 10 is a heavy tank. It's got bad camo, it's very easy spotted. This tank is ridiculously broken in my opinion on almost every spectrum because it's quick. So you're going to be able not only to demolish heavy tanks with it, you're going to also be able to rip apart mediums and tank destroyers. So let me know again what you guys think of that in the comments down below. But moving on to the last vehicle, we have the T-4485. Now this, in my opinion, is going to be a very balanced and just fun vehicle, so I am happy about this tank because it's sort of just like a T-3485 Rudy with a different type of hull. So looking at the front, here we go. So damage per minute is great, 2,591. Even though it doesn't look like it's great at the colors, it is great. Like the Rudy is sitting at, I think, 2,600. It's right up there with some of the best DPM mediums in the game. Penetration, yeah, that's not great, 147. And 210 on your premium, you're not really going to be able to penetrate any tier 8 heavies like an IS-5. Yeah, good luck. That's because this tank has the same gun as it says in the title, an 85mm, the same as your T-3485. So definitely not the most penetration, but that's not the point of this tank. It's just to get out your crazy DPM with only a 4.6 second reload. So it's got a crazy reload, and it as well does 200 average damage. Now, looking at aiming time, it's actually very nice at 1.9 seconds, but dispersion, yeah, it's not the best. It's sort of your Russian accuracy you'll get. But again, you've got such a quick reload, it really doesn't matter. You just shoot your shell, and then you reload another one in. And dispersion factors when moving and driving the tank, rotating it, are actually best in class, which evens out the bad dispersion as it is in general. So you're really just going to be stuck with that dispersion as it is. Now, aftershot isn't the best. At 4.0, you're really going to struggle sometimes when you are shooting, but honestly, the tank is pretty nice on the gun aiming. Now, gun depression, 6 degrees. That is something that the Rudy really excels in, is 8 degrees. This tank 6, yeah. Working gun depression is going to be quite a bit of a struggle. However, that's a balancing factor for the armor profile this tank has. If it had 8 degrees, in my opinion, it would be a little bit too much. So looking at the mobility, the tank weighs 31 tons, which is a pretty heavy amount, but honestly not the heaviest. And that's because, while it is a very nice hull, it's not honestly the strongest, not as strong as I thought it was going to be. So effective power to weight is 25.41, which is great. That's actually more than the Rudy, which means that you are able to go 52 kilometers per hour forward, 2 less than the Rudy, but quicker because you have a better power to weight ratio, and as well your traverse speed at 58.32 is excellent. So both of those values combined make it a super quick tank, and as well your concealment is 32.6, which means that you're able to use some of the best camouflage ratings in the game for a tier 7 medium. So looking at the frontal hull, you think, hey, it's a T-44 hull. It honestly isn't that thick. It's 144 in the upper plate. Yeah, it's not great. Lower plate's 112. You're not going to bounce anything. Even tier 6 vehicles stock are easily going to pen your upper plate. The turret is where the tank's actually very thick. It's about 200 millimeters thick, aiming dead on at the mantlet, so very thick there. And as well, the cheeks of the turret are about 150, so it's very weak on the cheeks. That is actually the weakest spot that you can see there, that's orange. But the edges are about 190, which means you are going to get some nice bounces, up to 400 millimeters on the edges. So honestly, you're just going to have to shoot at that little bar that you can see highlighted there. Other than that, you really can't penetrate this tank. Although, yeah, you do got a big cupola sticking out on the roof, 117 millimeters thick. That's the cupola it should be on, like the Centurion 5. So using your 6 degrees of gun depression and actually angling the tank at an angle like this, well, if you angle it effectively like this, that side is 270 millimeters thick, and your upper plate's about 170. You can angle it even more, 200 millimeters thick on the side, and 175 on the upper plate. That's where you're actually going to bounce quite a bit of shells. So it's very thick on the upper plate if you do angle it correctly, although you do have that little bar you can hit at the back, you can see there, only 41 millimeters thick. So overall, I think this is just going to be a fun tier 7 medium to play. But yeah, these other two tanks, the Centurion Mk1 and the Amil, I don't know what Wargaming is going to do, but I hope that they make them balanced. Because right now, just in my mind, they seem really, really broken and overpowered. So let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. I hope you did enjoy this video. This is a little bit different than my average video. I just really wanted to talk about these tanks and what they were coming into the game, so you guys had an insight on what they were. But other than that, I hope you're all doing well out there. Stay happy, stay healthy, and I'll see you in the next one.